Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall, and man, I went to Target today.
Okay, starting off strong with the shopping anecdote.
Yeah, look, sometimes you just gotta talk about your day because, like,
Sure.
I had to go
untangle
to
that shit.
Target was a little bit of a decompress after having to go to the MVA, which is the it's the DMV in this area.
Yeah.
Because I had to do some stuff there, which is always stressful. It always feels like something's going to go horribly wrong when you go to one of those places. So anyway, I got a big old thing of gummies, and
Okay.
I'm very excited. I'm basically the thing that's like propelling me forward in this podcast recording is the fact that I've got a 2-pound bag of Albanese gummy bears, sitting outside for after this podcast recording.
THC packed, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the Albanese has started their laced gummy line.
Hey, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Although I think that given that they're in Indiana, right? Right. They're in Indiana.
They're in Indiana.
They probably can't do that yet.
No, not yet.
But it's coming down the pipeline. I think that's a possibility. I guess I've been saying that about Indiana's relationship with weed for a while. I've had conversations with friends here where I'm just like, man, one day they'll fucking buckle. But honestly, nowadays I'm starting to think I might have been too soon to pull the trigger on that idea.
Yeah,
I figured the
really
whole
convinced.
country would.
Indiana is just trying to be a regressive state a lot of the time, so it's hard to know when that will happen.
It's very true. Well, I'm glad that the only thing keeping you alive right now is the thought of having gummies once you're done with this fucking episode.
No, I am excited for the
I'm
record.
kidding.
I fucking hate going to any government building so much.
Yeah.
It always feels like something terrible is going to happen.
I understand that, but I worked in a government building for like months, and honestly, it's just people, like I understand the foreboding sense. I really do. Also, I have to be honest. I've never had the experience that everybody seems to have, like, assume or has had with the DMV, or the BMV, because I don't know. I've every time I've gone, it's been like relatively smooth. So I think I'm lucky, honestly, because I've heard some horror stories. But
yeah,
we're not here to talk about the BMV or the DMCA, or what was the one that you have?
Yeah, DMCA takedown. It's the MVA.
The MBA. We're not here to talk about that, Niall. Niall, we're here to. It's episode 444. Can you believe it? Double digits. And I wanted to
classic.
I wanted to celebrate this achievement. And so I decided to look into some classic. Look at me. Classic.
Expert podcaster over here.
Expert podcaster saying classic. And was the Grink there?
Yep.
Classic UFO shit with a lot of strange details and bizarre connections. This story turned out to be way up my alley, and once I kind of got into it, I was hooked. I couldn't get away from it. So today now we're going to talk about the Scoriton Incident.
Scoriton?
Scoriton, Scoriton. I think it's sometimes written with 2 R's.
Is that like some sort of like inflamed intestine medication or something? Ask your doctor about Scoriton.
It does kind of sound like that. And honestly, what it is it's a small town in Britain.
Oh, okay.
And I think it could be interesting to start, maybe looking to name medications and things after small towns in Britain. Yeah, I need you to take 40 milligrams of Stratford upon Avon.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, that will clear up your glaucoma immediately.
Absolutely,
it's pretty effective.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what all the shit over there sounds like. So, but yeah, this is Scoriton, and like every fucking place in Britain, it's like associated with like 2 other town names or whatever. I don't know what that's all about. I've never lived over there or spent much time thinking about Britain.
Towns are named like Ava episodes.
Yeah, they're a lot like Evangelion episodes or medication. Take your pick.
Yeah.
You throw a dart at a dartboard that depicts all the towns and things in Britain. You're either getting an Avon episode or a medication or some combination therein. This is known. So, yeah, this is a great story. Sometimes you'll see people call it the Scoriton Mystery because this is for 2 reasons. One, it seems like a lot of loose ends with this story will just simply never be tied up. The man who is the subject of this story unfortunately died not long after all the stuff went down.
Okay.
And he's the main character of the story. He's got all the info. And the other thing is that there is one of the investigators named Eileen Buckle would later publish a book on the subject with the title The Scoriton Mystery. Another fun, speaking of names.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but the names in this story fucking tickled me. You'll see what I mean as we go. But they're very funny. Honestly, the only one who doesn't have like a name that kind of like tickles me a little bit is the main character, Ernest Bryant.
Yeah, because even Eileen Buckle is like, Buckle's like a thing on a belt,
Right, exactly. I just think it's very funny because there's a guy whose last name is Beer in this story. It's like,
hell yeah.
Like, you always would hear people say like, oh, well, like a lot of names come from your profession. Like you would, you're like, historically, you would have the surname of like your profession or whatever. So I'm just thinking, well, what did Eileen Buckle and Mr. Beer do? Like, do you get the surname Beer if you're like the town drunk? Is that your
or do you make beer? Like
that's the nice
it comes
ending
from a line of brewers.
That's a very nice ending for Mr. Beer's ancestors. I'm gonna go ahead and say he was fucking shit faced, or as the Brits like to call it, they like to call it pissed. I've heard.
Yeah. The British, I think the British all in all have better slang for like food and drink type things.
Oh, like chippy drunk. Buddy, wet pea barm type shit.
Well, that's not that's just like a dish. Like they're like, I'm talking about like they're getting a bit of scran and shit. Like when it's like, it's not a snack. You're like doing it, like there's just watching a bunch of these like light British and like Taskmaster type shows and there's some other like big never mind the Buzzcock still exists,
sure,
and I've watched like you hear these just euphemisms and shit and these like slang terms for stuff, and I think Britons are just more fun. They're a bit more whimsical.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. See, and I guess from my perspective, I think the British have a deep sickness, so that's kind of where we differ on this. Particular issue.
Hey, you can have a deep sickness and still have better slang than America.
Fair.
Like,
that's fair.
Look, I'm not debating what's rotten at the core of Britain.
So one of the bummers about looking at this story that made things a little harder for me is that the original Scoriton Mystery book, it's expensive. Like, I think the cheapest copy I found was like $90 for an old beat up copy. I think it just didn't it's a very limited thing. And I couldn't find text. Like, I couldn't find the full text online. I could find snippets from people who read it, but I couldn't I couldn't find the actual book, which, like, if sometimes you're very lucky that these older UFO texts are just archived online, which is always fantastic. So much of what I could find on this case comes from the people who have either read the book, where sometimes they'll just share snippets directly from the book, like I said, or a lot of this comes from these reports and archives from the investigators who are involved. So that's where I'm getting all this stuff. So what happened, and why is this case notoriously perplexing? So it's August 1965, and the then chairman of the British UFO Research Association, who I'm going to refer to here forward as Bufora, and yes, you can go ahead and say Bufora, these nuts or whatever. Dr. Jeffrey Dole partners up with fellow Bufora investigator Lionel Beer.
So they made like a Shandy between Beer and Dole. You get like a pineapple juice kind of Shandy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So insanely British names. They investigate a UFO sighting reported to a newspaper called the Plymouth Independent. And this report had actually trickled down to the paper when Ernest Bryant contacted, this is again Ernest Bryant being the guy who saw the UFO and stuff. He contacted the Exeter Astronomical Society, and he sent them a letter asking about UFOs, if people have seen UFOs in the area. Now, the letter was published in the Bufora newsletter with little additions from the editor, Steve Gamble.
A lot of just like word names here.
Yeah,
like, you got Beer, you got Dole, you got
Jonathan Chips.
Yeah,
would be another name that would fit in here.
Is that a real name that's in here?
No, I made that up. Okay. That just sounds real, right? Like that just sounds like something.
Jonathan Chips could see this UFO at some point. Who knows?
So, Steve Gamble, the editor, I think is the one who's sort of writing in the margins on this newsletter that's archived. This is what Bryant wrote to the Astronomical Society, and it's filled, just before I get into it, it's filled with like grammatical errors and like run-on sentences and weird misspellings. And there's even an editor's note about a weird thing that we'll get to. But here's what he says. After reading of an unidentified object over the Exeter area, I am now convinced I have not been seeing things. The information I now enclose, I have not disclosed to anyone for obvious reasons. On the night of 20th May, and then this is where we get the editor's note that says, a discrepancy in dates here. Bryant wasn't good on dates. So he's not good at remembering dates. A
likely excuse.
Apparently. At approximately 11 p.m., I was on the point of going to bed when I suddenly heard a humming sound. If I may add here briefly that the village of Scoriton is situated on the edge of Dartmoor, and the only sound that one is accustomed to is that of animals. However, the sound I have described grew in intensity until I was forced to go outside and investigate. On leaving the house, I was astonished to see almost directly overhead a pale blue light, the approximate direction of travel west to east, height about 300 to 400 feet and moving slowly. I observed this movement for 2 to 3 minutes when suddenly it became stationary. This was immediately followed by vibrations and the light disappeared. And here he spells vibrations, vibrations. In its place, I heard a distinct knocking sound, which was of a metallic nature. These ceased, and nothing more was seen or heard. On the evening of Sunday, June 6th, at about 7:30 p.m., more from curiosity, I suppose, I decided to look over the approximate area of where I had estimated the object had stopped. I left the lane and entered a field from which I discovered several pieces of equipment, of which I feel you would be most interested. I myself have not been able to identify any of these objects. Should this be of any interest to you, I shall be at Broadlands. Yours sincerely, Mr. E.A. Bryant. And for context, I believe Broadlands is the like old folks' home that he's working at as a groundskeeper. Like the term that I think that they use in Britain is a gardener, but I think he's more like a groundskeeper.
Okay.
So yeah.
So he does more than just tend like the actual gardens. He does. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's going to kind of be relevant later, that's his line of work. So the Bufora report says that the so-called pieces of equipment, quote, consisted of a turbine fitting with curved blades, a number of metal parts which would seem to have formed part of a larger mechanism, a broken bulb, and fitting, and a glass file containing a piece of paper or papyrus. Now, written on this paper was a phrase, one that Bryant had initially assumed to be Russian when he reported this. And when they investigated it, they found that the writing was classical Greek. And it said, Adelphos Adelpho, meaning brother to brother. So, an interesting...
What year is this?
This is 1960... Shit. Did I not... I believe this is 1965.
Okay.
I know I have dates in here somewhere, but I must have forgotten to put the first date. But I do believe this is... Yes, it's 1965 because there's some important stuff happens the immediate following year in 1966. So, 65, I do believe.
Okay. I was just trying to get a sense of, because as soon as you hear brothers, you start to
Yes,
wonder.
you hear brothers, you hear paranoia about like Russians.
Yeah.
It's all fitting for this time period, right?
Yep.
You are correct. You are very good to pick up on brothers in relationship to aliens because we got some stuff coming up.
Okay. I'll hold tight.
So
I'll
Bryant,
keep my hands and feet inside the car.
thank you,
And
please.
enjoy the ride.
Thank you, and please stow away any hats or phones. Don't be taking fucking phones out on this ride.
Right.
That shit's going out into outer space.
Yeah, we're not going to be held liable for any lost personal belongings, you know?
Yeah. So Bryant also tells them that he had found a, quote, compass with star-like calibrations. The thing that I didn't quite understand about the compass is I don't think that gets recovered. Like, a lot of the material that he claims to have found in this area where the UFO landed gets recovered. I don't recall them saying anything about the compass, but he does tell them about it. So I don't think they actually get to like look at the compass.
And this is like a directional compass, not like a math compass, right?
I don't know. I'm assuming that because it says compass with star-like calibrations. That's all I know.
Okay, then yeah, that would make sense.
So some of these pieces were taken by the treasurer of the Exeter Astronomical Society, while the others were being held by the Plymouth Independent. So when he went and reported this stuff, people took them to, I guess, take photos and document them and just, see what they were. The analysis of this stuff wouldn't come until later. So when the farmland Bryant was living on was investigated by the Bufora folks, meaning Dole and Beer, those two.
The Shady twins. Yeah,
Shandy. The Shandy twins. It could be the Shady twins. They're involved with a not massive, but like a big UFO organization. Could be shady. That I don't actually mean any slight to Bufora. I just, I don't know too much about their character, but with shit like MUFON, I guess what I'm saying is I know a lot less about Bufora, even though they have some of the best archived material, I think, online. I know less about like politicking and rumors surrounding that organization, whereas like MUFON is like notorious here in the States, right? So
yeah.
Maybe that's something worth learning. Although something that's interesting is at a certain point, one of the investigators like notes like they are taking into consideration the politicking surrounding UFO groups at the time. So they kind of try not to get too many people involved because of that exact problem. So like they didn't want just like flocks of fucking UFO people on the scene and fucking everything up and whatever. So they find evidence of a classic UFO landing site. So here's what it says in the report. Quote, trees and bushes were scorched and withered, as was grass, which was scorched over an oval area, there being 3 ring-like marks, also seemingly scorched, arranged in a triangular formation. Each mark being about 6 feet away from the others, and a tree over the road from the field had several branches hanging limply down on one somewhat blackened side. So, you couldn't call that like a crop circle necessarily, but it's got the it's UFO leavings,
Yeah, you got the landing depressions and
skid marks.
Yeah, there you go.
So
yeah, UFO skid marks.
UFO skid marks.
It's one step down from crop circles.
Yeah. So in November of that same year, the membership secretary of Bufora, Jim Danby, name could be funnier. A little note for Jim. I like it, but like
let's punch it up.
We could punch up Jim Danby.
So what's
Jim
like
Dandy?
Yeah, Dandy's fun. That's a little classic kind of high.
But
it's not an object. Though.
It's not an object. So maybe Jim Dandelion.
Oh,
maybe he's just got
that adds
a
a bunch
flower.
of syllables.
Yeah,
which is not like terrible. What about Jim Daisy?
Jim Daisy would be good. We're veering a little close into Garfield territory.
we are kind of circling around Jim Davis here.
Yeah. So I kind of like Jim Dandelion because we have Lionel Beer. So like maybe there could be like a funny moment where people are talking to both of them and they're like, Jim Dandelion Beer. Oh, oops. You know, like they could just have a moment like that.
Okay, so the joke is that beer sounds like
no, that the guy's name is Lionel, and if Jim's last name is Dandelion, which Jim Danby, I'm just letting you know we will contact you about this name change, and we're gonna figure that out. But the joke,
we'll get the paper started.
The joke is that Jim Dandelion plus Lionel Beer, his last name starts with the first name of Mr. Beers.
Okay.
So then they sort of concatenate in a funny way.
Okay. I understand what's happening.
Sort of a word salad.
Is the thing. That it was said enough with. Do you ever have a thing where you realize that you laughed at something not because it actually was a good joke, but because it had the cadence of a joke and you kind of reacted to it?
I exploit that all the time.
Yeah. I do too. Like, go back through this podcast. It's fucking rampant. But I realized that was kind of what was happening. We're just it was said with the cadence of a joke.
Thank you. Jim Dandelion Beer is my pitch. So Jim Danby, the membership secretary of Bufora, he circulates a questionnaire to the newsletter's readership asking, have you ever had a sighting or contact of which we do not have the details? And I guess that Bryant is now a reader since he's come in contact with these like researchers and investigators. So, and he's taken up an interest in UFOs after his sighting. He responds to this questionnaire. Danby realizes that he responds with a yes. There are details that we don't know about.
Interesting. Okay.
So Danby, his curiosity's piqued. He flipped over the response that he got from Bryant. And he discovers some new astonishing details that Bryant had apparently withheld in his initial report. So with this response, Bryant had added that on April 24th of that year, he'd had an encounter with beings from space who not only spoke to him, but brought him aboard their saucer. He had originally intended to tell the full story to investigators, but at the last second decided not to for fear that he would not be believed. So Danby's like, oh, this is juicy. He immediately writes to Bryant looking for more details. And so on December 6th, Danby gets a response. Now, we have quite a bit to go through here because this is the full story of Bryant's encounter with the beings from space.
And this is before the actual landing thing,
yes.
Right?
So this is a thing that kind of made this, that also made this this story kind of difficult at the time, is they're getting this information backwards, right? Like he initially contacts them with, like, I think midsummer, seeing this blue light UFO and picking up material because he goes and investigates the site. And then after he tells them, before that, I actually got on a ship with space beings.
Eventually, we'll start getting flashbacks to the night his wife was murdered. And we're going to put this together.
Or like, you could also even think of going the route where it's like, oh, we do hypnotic regression or whatever, and we unveiled that he's been abducted since he was a child and the aliens told him he was special, which is a recurring theme in a lot of this stuff. Although, honestly, I feel like that's more of like an 80s, 90s flavor of abduction experience. This is more the 60s, right? So you can kind of get an idea of where this is going.
There's a little less alien special little boy kind of stuff back then. It feels like
a little more the fate of humanity type stuff, right? So here's the account, okay?
Okay.
On April 24th, 1965, Bryant stated that he went for a walk towards Scoriton Down at about 5:30 p.m. When he arrived there, he began to turn around, and as he did so, a large saucer materialized out of thin air above the field to his right. This moved like a pendulum and became stationary a few feet above the field in front of him. There was no sound. He estimated its diameter as 60 feet and its height as 12 feet. An opening appeared in the center of the craft, and 3 figures were seen, all dressed in what Bryant first described as diving gear.
Interesting.
One of the figures beckoned to him. He went forward, and when he reached the craft, the 3 removed each other's helmets. 2 had very long foreheads, very blue eyes, blonde hair, squat noses, and bluish mouths. They had no facial hair. Bryant stated that they wore one-piece silvery gray suits and that the soles of their shoes were about 1.5 inches thick and made of spongy material. They wore belts with petal-like symbols. These 2 had 4 fingers on each hand widely spaced. Their helmets were not padded and had a type of perspex window. There were also 2 coils on the outside at ear level with black tubing. Bryant said he thought the helmets weighed 6 to 7 pounds and claimed to have picked one up when he later entered the craft. The third spaceman, and this is the most interesting one, Bryant wrote, seemed to be a youth of about 14 years of age with short, dark brown hair and quote-unquote normal features. So I kind of took this to mean like human-like features because the other ones are humanoid but with weirder features.
Right.
His suit seemed somewhat too large. This youth was the one who had beckoned and he spoke. Bryant said that the voice had a mid-European accent with a touch of American. He warned Bryant of dangers of forces from Epsilon, who removed people from Earth for procreation. So, what he means by remove people from Earth for procreation, there is an old contactee abduction thing or flavor of like, and it comes in a lot of different varieties, this flavor, to be honest, but like there are people who will claim that aliens told them that they can't reproduce normally and they have to like use humans to, I think this is part of like, I think Serpo maybe takes up this lore, like the whole Serpo Project Serpo thing. So there's a lot of lore in ufology like that if you know you're not aware.
That are genetic, like and I think a lot of that has you see that show in a bunch of different forms of like you get sometimes where that's when aliens are from the future and they're humans and that's why they can breed with us and stuff. Right. And sometimes it's like that's how the hybridization programs start. And like,
hybridization
it takes so many different forms.
Sometimes they're like extracting organs or like in I think I'm not gonna come up with the name right now, but like stories of people getting abducted and having wombs or whatever stuff taken from the womb or like even like sperm samples. I think like that was like one of the notorious things in the Barney and Betty Hill case is that Barney claimed to have had sperm samples taken, if I remember correctly. So it's a long-standing thing in UFO lore that this is like a weird thing that some aliens do. But I think what I want to mention that's important here is these aliens that he's talking to are warning him of another sinister alien force called Epsilon.
Okay,
and
so they're not from Epsilon. They're warning about people from Epsilon.
Probably that's what's happening here. And they are removing people forcefully, right? So this is not like a hey, just nut in this cup and we'll take and do stuff with it. This is we're going to kidnap you and remove you from Earth so we can use you for our procreation, our breeding farms or whatever. Yeah. So, So here there's a note from the editor that says Epsilon is of course the 5th letter in the Greek alphabet and used to designate the 5th most prominent star in any constellation. So of itself, this gave no real indication of origin. So it goes on to say, these people had also discovered the dimensional field and could be recognized by their ability to leap long distances. they were apparently here already in the guise of poltergeists, and because of insufficient knowledge of the orbital plane, remained invisible. So what he's saying is the epsilon beings, we would recognize them as poltergeists. Like they are like almost etheric beings in a way. I don't know if etheric's the right word, but they're like maybe even interdimensional almost, multidimensional, where like we experience them as poltergeists. That's what he's saying here. The beings from Epsilon are what we experience as poltergeists, and they can leap really far.
It almost sounds archon-y.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
because that's like those are on a higher dimension, and in our plane they can represent as whatever. Like that's poltergeists aren't directly linked to that in any way, shape, or form. But like I always try to figure out like, how would this get interpreted? Like how does this, or is this referencing something that already exists? You know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the thing is like, I always think in my mind of the sort of archon-y stuff is like in my mind. And I'm not saying this is like an accurate explanation or analysis of it, but it's very much represented. It's combined in my mind with Ancient Aliens. And I think of the Ancient Aliens mythology as a 70s thing, right? But the thing is, you also have to think that stuff came from somewhere. A lot of times it's fed in through science fiction. So like you could maybe speculate. I don't know anything about like, this is crazy. I had somebody asked a question in our podcast Discord a while back that was asking about the specific time, like when specifically did mantis aliens start appearing in science fiction? And I was like, that's a good fucking question.
That is a good question.
And I tried so hard. I even found a website that was basically a science fiction database of like terminology that's like talking, and it cites like where this appears and you can follow a timeline. But I couldn't fucking find mantis aliens as a term or a concept in like on like a specific part in the timeline. You know what I mean? Like insectoid was a thing that was in science fiction for like a long time, but mantises, that I couldn't quite pin down. So here it's like, I wonder, when in science, like, pulp sci-fi, did we start talking about interdimensional beings? Like when did that become, where does the Archon mythology have any origins in science fiction? Like, what I'm saying? Like,
I think you could pretty easily look at, I'm talking entirely out of my ass here, but I think some of the kind of interdimensional kind of madness driving beings of the Lovecraft mythos could be looked at as forebears of what a lot of people use Archon for now.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
As like these super advanced things from outside of reality that you can't actually understand the reality of, and they will like interaction with them in the wrong way will taint you forever and like break your mind. Like Archons kind of feel like a not direct descendant of that, but it playing in the same kind of space.
Did you ever just have one of those moments where it just dawns on you on just how nonsensical this conversation is to most other people?
Trust me, this happens. Like I do this with, I've been going through music with some like music stuff with Jules lately, and the discussions are exactly like this. It's like I'm trying to reference like how my brain processes these different subgenre delineations and everything, and like it gets so in the weeds to such a degree that I'm just like I can't. I'm embarrassed that I'm even like saying this is a thing that makes sense to me.
I don't think you have to be embarrassed, but it is like, hey, huge asterisk. If you don't know what the Archons are, God help you, just go find our episodes about it, because like there's some context there, but they're interdimensional vampire aliens. Maybe start
with the second one, because the first one was really early on.
That's true.
And it's not bad. It just is like I didn't know how to delineate the types of sources well enough yet to get a consistent thing going.
Yeah, I get that. So the Epsilon beings are interdimensional beings that we see as poltergeists, and they're invisible. Now the account goes on. It says This spaceman told Bryant, "My name is Yamsky." You cocked your head to the side. What made you cock your head to the side there?
It's just.
Does the name sound familiar? Or?
I think it might have had the tone of a Damsky.
Okay.
That like there's just some flash of recognition, but I don't think that there actually is a recognition.
Okay.
You know.
So yeah, this spaceman tells Bryant, "My name is Yamsky," and when asked where they were from, replied Venus. At one point in the conversation, Bryant stated that Yamsky had said, "If only Des or Les were here, he would understand." And also, "1 month from today, we will bring you proof of Mantell. Watch for the blue light in the evening." He also gave Bryant a message for Des or Les, which was, quote, "It is only now that we appreciate the work he has done on the Sanskrit."
Okay, am I supposed to know who Des or Les or Mantell are?
Des or Les you're not going to get, I don't think. Mantell is probably ringing a chime in there somewhere. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Also, it's super weird to me that they just come to this random British farmer and tell him, give a message to Des or Les. Can you imagine, like, you're walking, you're on a walk. I've been going on walks lately. Some fucking stranger walks up to you, shakes your hand, says, "Give this message to Des or Les. We appreciate the work on the Sanskrit," and then walks away.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is Des or Les?
We don't all know each other. I don't know how your world works, but
it could be an alien like racism in a way.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Honestly, have we ever considered that aliens might be racist to humans in this mythology? I have not considered that.
I mean, I don't think we've delved into that topic to any level of depth.
From this, like, okay, here's the thing though, like when you think about it, it's probably not gonna. Okay, actually, I just realized that they were kind of racist to Italians that one time.
Yes, they were a little bit. They didn't seem to like Italians.
One of my, it's not so much that they didn't like Italians. Honestly, it might have been more revealing of the psychology of the guy who saw them, because he's the one who described the aliens as Italian looking. One of my favorite alien stories. It's so weird and silly. That's the pancake bakers from space. Yeah, so I almost said from Mars. Check that out if you haven't heard that one yet. That's a great story. You gave that one to me and I love it.
Yeah.
But no, if you think about it though, like aliens being racist to humans, okay? Like if aliens are sort of like more of a sign of the movements of science fiction and the socio-political atmosphere, and it's a lot of these like hippie new age types encountering them, I don't think the racism would be like abundantly like on its face, like blatant. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it'd be more systemic or structural.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and it's like presumably your whole thing is you're like in this hippie Space Brothers shit. You're like, oh well, you know, we love all our brothers and sisters and stuff. Also, yeah, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, so then it's like you have that type of alien, which is like a lot of the contactee stuff. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And then on the other hand, you just get aliens that are just too alien for us to really truly understand. And the most communication we get is from fucking assholes like, you know, Falcon on UFO Cover Up Live talking about, what was it, Eben or whatever, the strawberry ice cream loving alien. Do you remember that shit?
I vaguely
So it's like you get
that,
these like weird stupid anecdotes from so you mostly are dealing with just like an unknowable alien creature. But you know, I don't know. I guess I just haven't expected an alien to come down and be like, say some fucked up shit like that telepathically.
I really do wonder, because like we have had different versions of aliens throughout history. You know, from more of like, you know, you have your Space Brothers, you have the kind of scientific, like we're gonna obliterate cattle to reap their organs and shit.
Yeah.
That you have, you know. So are we ever gonna get any that just come down and are just fucking mean? And I think that would be what we like. Maybe that's like the Alpha Draconians or whatever, and they just haven't come down yet.
They are there. I just think that like there's almost like a comical like the only word that's coming to my mind is castration, but that's not the word I mean. I mean like there is like a limiting of the like idea of the power of the malevolent beings because they're all doing comic book supervillain conspiracy hidden plans and stuff.
Yeah,
so
they're
it's
all
like
behind the curtains.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, dude, there are some people though, like I think like Bud Hopkins, for instance, was like one of the guys who was really concerned about, like, actually he goes well here because he was one of the guys who's very concerned about the breeding programs and people getting abducted and having their, you know, reproductive organs messed with and stuff. But again, it's all like a scheming grand conspiracy that and half the time seems like maybe unknowable to human minds or whatever. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but we haven't. Yeah, there's not really like aliens that are just like, yeah, we're coming down fucking blasting. It all has to be obscured because I don't know if people haven't like. There's no Independence Day shit going on outside. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it all they have to make these things more cloak and dagger because the otherwise the average person would be like, I'm not seeing that. What are you talking about?
So to finish up this encounter, this account of his encounter, there's some extra stuff that Bryant would add outside of just this letter. Like that basically when they start meeting with him, they start getting extra details as well. So he claims to the UFO researchers that he had been assisted into the saucer, and this was consisting of 3 or 4 exactly similar compartments inside the UFO. He was not quite sure of the number. And each compartment had a door through into the next and a couch more or less in the center fitted with straps at the top, center, and bottom. Each compartment also had a door similar to that, which had outslid into the top when the craft had landed. Next to each door had been a large convex screen similar to a television screen but larger, on which there were lights with rainbow colors. These compartments were lit by a triangular subdued light in the padded or quilted ceiling or walls. No bulbs or wiring were to be seen. And then at a later interview, Bryant stated that some of the walls were metallic and gave a slightly different description of the lighting. So he differs a little in a couple of his details.
This might be the first time, if I'm understanding this correctly, that we've had like a railroad. You know what a railroad apartment is?
Maybe like an apartment built near like has a railroad.
No,
near it, or?
It's a type of apartment where like it's all the rooms are just in like a line, and you have to kind of go through each one to get to the next one. It's all like there. It's not like a big square where there's a central hub and things branch off of it. It's like one room, then another room, then another room, then another room, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's normally my vision of UFOs is a bit more circular, a bit more like spread out,
a big
in that
central
way.
room.
Yeah, and in this case, it sounds like we've got like a 4-quadrant fucking railroad apartment here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Of rooms with strapped down couches.
I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, that's interesting. So Bryant was asked about the motive power and was told this was, quote, idiomotor movement. Okay. After going around the craft, he jumped to the ground, called goodbye, and the door closed. The craft rose 40 or 50 feet, then vanished. The sheep in the next field apparently moved their heads as though following its flight path. So that's his encounter when they finally get it out of him, when he writes back to them. On top of this being weird, like I mentioned, this meant that the Bufora folks were investigating the case. They'd gone in backwards, right? If anything, Bryant was saying was to be believed with the blue light UFO sighting and discovery of the mysterious pieces, those were reported first. And this story sort of does this legwork to retroactively heighten the importance of the debris that he finds, right? So that's something that Dole and Beer, when they initially investigated the first report, had no idea about when they first got there. So
yeah,
this is new.
It is interesting that, if I remember correctly, one of the things that was in the kind of artifacts was a light bulb. Yeah, like a broken bulb. And he specifically, in the description of the UFO, says that there wasn't any exposed wiring or bulbs or anything to those light sources. Yeah. So it's interesting, you know?
Yeah, initially thought maybe it came off the UFO. It might be something else. We'll see.
Oh, okay. Flash bulb or something.
So Bryant would actually give even more details to investigators later when they talk with him.
Okay, Brian, you gotta just come out with everything.
The whole thing.
Yeah. Like the
it's
first time I'll give you, but
yeah,
that second time you should have just fucking given everything.
Yeah. So he adds on to it, expanded universe type shit. And he tells them that while he was on the craft, he had seen something that, quote, reminded him of his world, presumably Earth. First, he said he saw draped across the foot of a couch in this UFO. He saw some sort of purple robe or dressing gown with a red rose embroidered on it. And then, second, the being calling itself Yamsky told Bryant of a family nearby who had been taken from Earth for these so-called procreation reasons by the beings from Epsilon. Now, he claimed that he knew where this family had lived, where they had been taken from by the Epsilon beings. He said that this is in a cottage in the nearby town of Yeovil, I think is how you pronounced it. They were so the family was named the Richards, and it was a mother and father with a young son. And the house they lived in had sat vacant for 8 years since their disappearance. This is what Bryant's telling them.
Okay.
And so all these new details are weird enough, but to confuse things even more, we got to unpack some of the things that seem to be references in the story.
Okay.
So
like what?
The Bufora investigators note importantly that none of these connections I'm about to tell you, however obvious they may seem, were things that Bryant said himself. This was all extrapolation by people familiar with the UFO scene, people work like Bufora researchers and stuff. These were people who knew UFO shit. So first and probably most obvious to UFO history knowers, the thing that you had a flash of insight is the name of the younger human-looking alien being going by the name Yamsky. Not a huge leap to assume that this is sort of, it sounds like the famous contactee from the 50s and 60s, George Adamski, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So Bryant will claim to not know who that is. Bryant will claim that none of this is anything he's familiar with. But they go on and they find that his description, the purple robe that Bryant said he saw on this saucer, it is very close to the description of a robe that Adamski claimed was given to him by the Saturn Council. So,
okay,
Adamski is a contactee, right? He Orthon and the Venusians and shit. That's Adamski,
right?
He gets to go visit Saturn and stuff. Always just weird recounting his whole shit. But yeah, he wrote about a robe that was similar. To further make things fucking weird. Incidentally, or perhaps not, Adamski had died 12 hours prior to Bryant's reported contact with the being Yamsky. This has led some to read in the encounter. Hold on to your ass, Niall. As Bryant meeting the reincarnated spirit of George Adamski.
Interesting.
So
reincarnated very quickly.
Yeah.
Didn't really have to spend a lot of time counting his karmic weight or anything.
He's already
seems to have turned around real quick.
Look, if you know George Adamski's followers and shit, his karma, he was fucking so good on that wheel of karma. So presumably what happened here is he was immediately reincarnated as a higher etheric being.
Right. And not a baby even. He got to skip that part.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Shitting your pants, can't walk for a bit. Sucks. Can't even
Maybe these aliens just come out as adults,
It's possible. It's
Except
possible.
for that 14-year-old.
They're like pod people. Well, it's a
yeah.
Maybe they're born 14 years old. We don't know.
Yeah.
The thing that I kind of want to point out is the way that this gets written about is wow, this guy had an encounter with an alien named Yamsky 12 hours after Adamski's death. And I would just like to add to that that's not exactly right. He reported months later that he encountered an alien being named Yamsky 12 hours after Adamski's death. Just to be clear.
Yeah, it was not an immediate thing that, you know.
And he didn't even report it first.
Yep.
So, you know, it's So it's weird.
Sorry, Bryant. You're not. So far, you're not putting yourself out there as the most reliable source of information.
It's pretty weird. I mean, like I said, there's the editor's note where it's like, yeah, Bryant's not good at remembering dates. Like, he's not. Yeah, reliable is not
His
a word.
wife hates it.
Reliable is not a word I would use to describe. Oh, I get it, because he's like, shit, we were supposed to go get.
Yeah.
Fucking.
Tapas.
Yeah.
In 1965. Yeah.
Yeah, they were supposed to meet for tapas, and he fucking forgot. He's so bad at remembering those dates. His wife's sitting at the tapas place checking her watch. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He better be getting abducted by an alien, or else I'm gonna be pissed.
I mean, it turns out he was picking up a pack of Najul at the grocery store. Like, you know?
Yeah.
He has trouble remembering what version of date, you know?
That's oh man. Okay.
That's such a fucking reach.
No, I like it. So to finally hammer all of this home, it was also pretty quickly speculated that the deaths or less that Yamsky referred to, given all the other connections, was probably Desmond Leslie, which is he was the man who co-wrote Adamski's first book, The Flying Saucers Have Landed.
Oh, okay.
I also think that I'm pretty sure that it's Leslie who is the source of the story of Adamski supposedly getting to have a private meeting with Pope John the 23rd, I think. Do you remember that? There's a story where supposedly Adamski got to go and like talk with the Pope about his like Saturn journey and stuff.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
And it was like that Pope would like pass away like shortly after. He was just so floored by the story. He was like, I can't fucking believe it. What do I tell the people? We got Venusians coming here. And this fucking guy is showing me everything. The Catholic Church is going to upend itself.
I mean, and then you can look at it as the secret papal assassins took him out because he knew
too much.
Aliens now.
We have to. He was probably like, we have to dedicate a whole satanic telescope thing to aliens. That's a reference to an episode that's like a year old now. I'm realizing.
Now we also have to go consult the chronovisor to see when all this happened.
Yeah, I think Desmond Leslie also wrote about Christ. He wrote some like satirical.
Of course they did.
Well, no, I think it was like some satirical text.
Oh, really?
It's a weird. I don't quite know what his whole deal is. These are just like the little tidbits that I picked up in reading this stuff. So here's the other thing. The proof of Mantell that was referenced by Yamsky. This, again, it immediately invokes a well-known UFO story from this time period. So Mantell, that is Captain Thomas Mantell, the Air National Guard pilot who in 1948, 6 months after Kenneth Arnold has his seminal UFO sighting, he dies in a plane crash in pursuit of a UFO.
Oh.
That's Mantell.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a very highly publicized story. It was famous among UFO people and UFO groups. And there was tons of rumors surrounding it. Like I'm pretty sure there was some stink of cover-ups by the Air Force, as there is usually around this time. They talk about there's a rumor that the plane was like completely disintegrated by whatever happened up there. Mantell's body was missing. The crash site was radioactive. All kinds of weird stuff. So yeah, that's Mantell, and they're assuming that's what Yamsky meant by proof of Mantell.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I mean, why would this reincarnated George Adamski care about proof of I guess it makes more sense if it is George Adamski, but like, why would these alien beings visit a British farmer to tell them about like a U.S. Air Force pilot?
Yeah, I mean, why would they tell this guy specifically? I don't think we're going to get a good answer to. But it would make sense that if George Adamski had been reincarnated as an alien, he might have some final thoughts to get out before he goes back to
that's
fucking
for damn sure. So When Eileen Buckle and Jim Danby met with Bryant in December 1965, Bryant claimed to have never read any UFO books before. He didn't know anything about the subject.
Not at all. Okay.
They spoke with Bryant for several hours, and they get him to, they get him to multiple times confirm his stories, specifically about the blue orb and the discovery of the debris. The thing is, that story about the robe that he saw, that doesn't come for another month, not until January of 1966. So the timeline's all weird and fucked up. Before investigators explain the implications of experience, like they tell him, like, do you realize that this all sounds like Adamski shit, dude? He was in the book, in the text, they say that he was, quote, he seemed astonished. So
okay, because he of course has no idea who Adamski is.
I guess not.
Why that's significant. Okay,
I guess not. So through their meetings with Bryant, the Bufora investigators were also able to get Bryant's employment history, which, like we said, at the time, I believe he was at like an old folks home as a gardener, a groundskeeper type role. And they also got information about where the debris that he had recovered had gone. So they were able to track down the guy from the Exeter Astronomical Society who had some of the pieces discovered on site. Mm-hmm. This was a guy named Gerald Aspen. It's just a tree. Right. They also got the pieces being held by the newspaper. Desmond Leslie, also the guy who co-wrote Adamski's book, he gets in contact with Bufora, and he comes to meet with everyone to discuss the case. And there's like one of the things that was sort of like charming to me about this whole story is that like sometimes the anecdotes about them meeting together was like basically all these UFO researchers just getting together in a pub, knocking back a pint and talking shit, which sounds awesome, frankly. I love that vision.
That feels like the fun part of the UFO meetups.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff, not as much, but the just like swapping your fucking stories over drinks at a pub sounds pretty fun.
Sounds kind of nice. So yeah, Desmond Leslie, the co-author of Adamski's book, he shows up, and he's pretty skeptical of Bryant's claims, since he basically says that anybody who had read The Flying Saucers Have Landed could come up with many of the details of the story. But there were two things that are pointed out that would be strange for Bryant to know about.
Okay.
So Adamski had spoken, rarely, but he did. He had spoken about how he had anticipated his own reincarnation as a little boy. But the thing is, this particular fact had not been published anywhere. It was not in any material. And Adamski talking about this was just not very well known. Okay. As for the robe that he talks about, for Bryant to know that this was similar at all to the robe that Adamski had been given, he would have had to have read a very specific text, which is Orbit, Volume 4, Issue 3, in which Adamski wrote a report titled My Trip to Saturn, in which he describes a blue, not purple, rose-embroidered robe given to him. So different color, but, the investigators even tracked down this felt so loaded to me because this could mean anything, but they say that they tracked down a quote healer/investigator that Bryant had previously seen named H. Goundry Clark. Investigator. Okay. I get that. Healer. That could mean a lot of things.
It also makes me question the second thing.
Right. It makes me wonder, why is Bryant visiting? I didn't know if this was a guy who was involved in researching this specific case or a guy that Bryant had history with. It was a little unclear to me, and I don't know what healer means. Do they mean? I don't know what they mean. It could mean a lot of things. It depends on whether this is a new age thing or is this a village medicine person. You know what I mean? Like a pharmacist. Yeah. What do they mean by this? So he had seen this guy, H. Goundry Clark, and Bufora tracks him down. And they just want, because of his relationship with Bryant, they want to check out whether he could have gotten this stuff from Clark. And they go and visit this guy, and Clark did have some issues of orbit, but not the one with Adamski's Saturn story. So
doesn't mean he never had it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't, none of this really means that he didn't get it from him, but again, it's basically sort of turning up nothing at the end of the day, this particular thread. So yeah, nonetheless, Leslie was reportedly, this is the actual words that they say, quote, not at all happy with all the stuff about the Epsilonese and poltergeist activities. So Leslie's scrutinizing the other details in Bryant's story as the person who knew Adamski, and he, I guess, thinks the poltergeist and Epsilonese shit is all bullshit, but is like a little weirded out by the fact that the guy knows these like rare facts about Adamski. Okay. The team was also analyzing the debris that they'd recovered from the Astronomical Society and newspaper, but and this is another one of those things that like it could very well be this was just an accident, but it seems weird. They analyzed this debris that they'd gotten, and tragically, somehow the Greek message on the paper, Adelphos Adelpho, was just missing.
Okay.
They could see it in photographs that had been published in the newspaper, but any negatives of the note were just gone. Which is weird. Yeah. The remaining pieces were sent to Leonard Cramp, author of Space, Gravity, and the Flying Saucer. I don't know why these names make me laugh so much. So they send it to this guy who wrote this book. They also send it to the Isle of Wight UFO Society. So, stay in their community. And these were their conclusions. The examination reveals that these items are, in fact, parts of aircraft equipment which was not installed in the American Mustang aircraft, and it is our opinion that any claim to the contrary is false. The examination had shown that at least one and possibly three of the items were from a bomb site computer made by Smiths Limited or Sperry's Limited. Subsequent inquiries with these companies could neither confirm nor deny this, as that particular type of bomb site was obsolete and none was available for comparison. The glass file was analyzed and found to have been made from a mixture of sodium and calcium silicates, ordinary soda glass. The silver sand was found to be silver sand. It had been suggested, however, that this file might have a gardening connection, but we're going to have to wait for that one. So before it took that, and they also get into the lead on the Yeovil house. So they go out there and try to dig up as much as they could. And what they find is that the house, or sorry, I should be saying cottage, because the impression I got is the place was pretty rustic. It was basically as Bryant had described it. It had been abandoned for years. Before investigators found that there had actually been a TV program on this particular house and its missing family. But instead of the name Bryant, instead of the name that Bryant had given them, which was Richards, the TV program referred to a Tom Jones. So
singer?
Oh, really? Oh, is there a singer named Tom Jones?
Isn't Tom Jones What's New Pussycat?
Oh shit, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Anyway,
they like note here in a way that's kind of funny that like we were like now kind of frustrated at the idea of like now we have to just narrow down to the Tom Jones that this is referring to. And like when you think about the fact that this was a television program, is Tom Jones the real name? Like they're going based off of a TV program about a missing family. I don't know. I'm used to those kinds of. I'm probably picturing something that's not exactly the same for 60s British television, but like I'm picturing like a Unsolved Mysteries where like often they don't use the real names of people or whatever for the cases they're covering. So I don't know. Are you looking up Tom Jones Pussycat right now?
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I believe that is the right person. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're like, this is going to be fucked up trying to find the Tom Jones that we're looking for. And I think they kind of just turn up nothing.
It's a common name.
Yeah, and to make things even harder for them, the producers of the television program never responded to any of their inquiries. They just don't get anything back. They're like, "Can you please give us information about this?" They get nothing. Now, about a year after the investigation, the Yeovil house was demolished. So, another dried up thread, basically, is what this feels like.
Yeah.
So, struggling to pull up good leads, Eileen Buckle, she suggests that the material that they recover from the landing site be taken to a local psychic that she knew. So, we've been talking to UFO investigators, but now it's time to get the psychics involved.
Yeah, we got to get the people with preternatural abilities involved.
Yeah. So they want to get a psychometry reading. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But psychometry, for those who don't know, it's taking objects and getting psychic readings off of them, like feelings usually too. Think the X-Files episode Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. That's psychometry, what they're doing in that episode. That's the one where what's the actor's name? It's the guy who plays the dad on the grandfather on Everybody Loves Raymond. Raymond's dad. That actor, great actor, fantastic in this episode, really good episode, and he has like the psychic power to like see when people are going to die, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're like giving him objects that he can like pick up psychic readings off of. So the first reading, I guess, didn't lead to much when they went to visit the psychic that she knew. But apparently this psychic said something about how they were sensing a flying saucer connection.
Interesting.
So Eileen is like, shit, I don't want to let the psychic thing go if she's picking up, UFO stuff. I better get a better professional psychic. So they get a London-based professional psychic to do a reading.
I mean, but like you're the UFO person that took a thing to a psychic and they're like, yeah, there's some UFO connections here. And you're like, oh, that's really that's
look,
that's a thing.
You don't get it, Niall. Okay. This is she went and got Meyer brand psychic readings when she should have just been getting, the fucking Pillsbury psychic readings.
Yeah,
the craft
go
singles.
with the name brand. No more brand X psychic readings.
So here we have, and this is where I think I'm going to leave this episode off. We have transcripts of the psychic reading done in London on these objects.
Oh, hell yeah.
So here's what the psychic said when this is an account of what happened when they brought the psychic this debris. Something destroyed, gone. How? A ship or airplane gone into oblivion. It is linked with a party of men. Somebody is out of touch. There's a space, a division. Could be someone who has passed. I think all these pieces come from one thing. Something salvaged or rescued. There's a peculiar feeling surrounding all this. All the people surrounding this are probing. I have a funny feeling they were picked up or found embedded by a force, like when you drop an object. Not on the ground. This was found in England. It goes on. Oh, sorry, I read that kind of weird. Ignore the not on the ground, this was found in England part. It goes on to say, this isn't British. I have the word, a clue. All found embedded near each other, but all have not been found. They've been somewhere a long time. Then, picking up and almost dropping the small black piece, there's a tragedy around this. I felt as if everything went bang and disintegrated. The moment it happened, I have this fear I seem to know it would happen. Somebody, a man has been killed, a man in outer space at least. I know I am not on the ground. This was found in England. I get such a peculiar humming noise. I seem to be going round and round, almost as if I were in a flying saucer. I know I shall explode, and I exploded. I don't think there was more than one person in the aeroplane. I don't think you will get enough evidence. It will be too bitty, patchy. We still leave a lot of gaps for whoever will want to tear it to pieces. Could some of these pieces have been dropped from an aeroplane? I can't find a war on. Everything is peaceful and calm. I feel they are trying to elude, escape from something. I have a strong feeling it shouldn't have happened. Was the pilot on an ordinary run? The thing disintegrated. One man in the plane. Head went funny. I think the man was English. Either I can see big black headlines, but I don't feel he was a notability. Do you think these have been dematerialized? They were flown from somewhere to England.
So is that saying that there was some sort of also a man-made craft with a pilot that got disintegrated with this fucking UFO?
It sounds to me like they're confirmed. What this sounds like is the psychic's energies that they're picking up on confirm that this is from the Mantell crash.
Okay.
So it's not debris from the UFO. It is debris from Mantell's plane, somehow transported to England decades later. Well, over a decade later. That seems to be what we're getting from this. But here's the thing, and I'll leave you with this little teaser for part 2. It doesn't end here. There's more.
Right.
And somebody would become involved with this case shortly after the psychometry readings who would just continue to complicate the whole story. But we're going to save that for part 2.
Okay, so we have a new actor joining the crew next episode. That's going to really shake things up. A new fighter has joined the battle. This is like when you're playing Smash Bros. Melee and suddenly the silhouette of Mewtwo appears on your screen, and Mewtwo's here to fuck your whole shit up. When you're not ready for that, you're trying a new character. Or something,
I haven't played Pichu very much. I'm gonna get a couple reps in with Pichu. Oh fuck, the ultimate Pokemon. Fuck, I'm fucked. Yep. That's what this is basically. All
right.
So that's what I've got for you with the really weird story of Bryant's UFO experience and the Scoriton Incident, the Scoriton Affair, the Scoriton Mystery, whatever you want to call it. Very infamous story, and there's more weird shit to come.
All right.
With all that being said, are you ready for a big question?
Oh, I'm so ready.
Okay. If you received a short message in a bottle from aliens, what message would you hope to be receiving? What would be what message would make you most excited to get from aliens?
What was look, this isn't my actual answer, but it was my first thought. What was that fucking Dark Souls meme, fingered butthole?
Tri-finger butthole, yeah.
Yeah.
Butthole. Damn. You encroached on the Dark Souls space before I could? That's kind of fucked
sometimes
up.
Sometimes I gotta throw you off your game and make you go outside your wheelhouse a little bit.
Fuck, now I have to think about this? I'm so fucked. I feel like we've done a similar question in the past because like the first thought that I had in my mind was, I get the message and it's like text speech like you up. But I think we've done that. I think we've actually
I think you went with that.
Done again. A similar big question and had the same joke. So now I have to think of something else. And that's really hard.
What if they just like are submitting like karaoke requests?
Oh
like
shit!
They're just like sing Dancing Queen.
Okay.
And they're trying to get you to like do something kind of like kind of a test or some way to embarrass you. Maybe.
Okay. So I'm opening this bottle up. I'm pulling out the papyrus, and in classical Greek it says, "Yo, hit the gritty," and sing.
Sing the high note and my heart will go on.
Fucking don't make it. That's the last message I want to see. I hate that song. But if the thing is though, like if I'm getting that request from aliens, I guess I kind of gotta just go with it. On the one hand, it's like you could be like really like scoring points with the aliens, right? That could be good. Or you could be like, well, maybe they're here to just fuck my shit up. And if I don't sing My Heart Will Go On, they'll just blast me with like alien lasers.
We just unintentionally did a Rick and Morty episode. I accidentally started us down the path of an actual Rick and Morty
And then
episode.
They send the message in the bottle asking, where's all the Szechuan sauce gone? And I get up on the fucking counter at McDonald's and I scream and I rip my shirt off because I get that message.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to answer them. I'm overwhelmed with emotion. And I'm stopping at McDonald's to, get my health bar back up. And I'm getting a large fry and some chicken nuggets. And I'm eating them. And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. I got that like alien bottle message. I open it up. They're like, hey, why don't they have the Szechuan sauce? And I am just, I'm on that table fucking screaming.
You're fucking
going crazy.
You immediately.
You want to know something? I'm going to give you a little anecdote. And maybe he might even like listen to this. I know that sometimes they will listen, but my sister, her husband, there was like one time where I don't know what's wrong with me. he brought up Rick and Morty, and he was like, "Oh, Kyle, do you watch Rick and Morty?" I could have just said no or yes.
Yeah.
I could have just said no or yes.
I watched the first couple seasons, but I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah, I could have said that.
Which is a very reasonable answer.
Instead, the first thing I said was, I kind of soured on it after the guy went to McDonald's and screamed on the counter about Szechuan sauce.
So that was the line crosser for you, not the Justin Roiland stuff.
Well,
okay,
no,
interesting.
No, that happened before. First of all, thank you. Look, of course the Roiland stuff is horrible, but it was just like I could have said anything else, and I just sat there and watched my brother-in-law pull up the video of this guy doing this, which if people don't know.
Had he not heard?
No,
he
had no idea.
This?
He's so...
Yeah, okay.
He's like so normal. He's like not online in terrible places like me. And like I watched his face turn to a frown. I felt, and in that moment I was just like, Kyle, you could just be normal. You could have just let him live his life without seeing the Szechuan screaming kid, like the Redditor who freaked out about sauce.
You don't want to be the person that introduces your normal family to the internet.
I need to just learn when to shut the fuck up.
I try very hard not to like actually reference internet things around my parents.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to explain any of them.
Yeah, I get it. You know, I recently had a friend review me and tell me, Kyle, you're annoying in a good and funny way. And
that's such like a backhanded fucking.
Well, it's putting a lot of things, and it's kind of forcing me to think about myself, put a lot of things into perspective. So,
I don't think annoying is the way to describe you in any way.
I appreciate that. They did though, so I'm thinking about it.
Look, I'll figure out who that is after and send them.
You don't know who it is. Don't worry about it. But okay. Hey, I mean, look, if I'm going to be annoying, at least it's in a good, funny way. That I'm okay. I guess I can deal with that. But I'm thinking about making some changes. Slime Man. Are you ready to get to some fucking business?
Yeah, let's wrap this one up. So if you want to follow us on social media, and why wouldn't you? You can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there.
We're also on Blue Sky at It Gets Weird. You can follow us on there. We'll be posting episodes and stuff. I think I'm going to start tweeting about my thoughts on... Like, I've been thinking about this case that I'm covering right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might just, like, post about it.
Hey, post through it. Who cares?
Like, once these episodes are live and stuff, I might just post about it. So if you want to get my extra thoughts, supplemental material, I might share some stuff on Twitter. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm going to cover it here, but... Or not Twitter.
Blue Sky?
Blue Sky is what I meant. I'm not fucking... we're trying not to fuck with Twitter as much. But we are still
Twitter
there.
is an archive at this point of all of our episode postings.
I post when a new episode goes live, but that's about it. So yeah, follow us on social media. Twitch.tv/itgetsweird. Hey, Niall, Colin and I beat all of Elden Ring together.
Oh, congrats.
And our next plan on the live stream is to play some Pokemon Nuzlocke. So,
oh shit!
Come hang out, folks. If that sounds fun, we have a great chat of listeners from the show who show up regularly, and it's always a great time. So, if that sounds fun, I think y'all should check it out. Give us a follow. It's a lot of fun. Honestly, that kind of brings me to a thing that I wanted to say. That I feel like I just have to say this every once in a while. Thank you to our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't do this without you. Like, it can't be overstated how much the support over the years and people enjoying our stuff has kept us going. So thank you. If you want to continue to support us, though, we have some things you can do. If you want to go the extra mile, you can email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com if you've got stories. Basically, give us content for the show so we can then just use it.
Yeah, if you have any funny big questions.
Yeah, big questions. We did take some big questions in the past. If you have a good story, just let us know how we should address you, and we'll probably read it on the show if you send us something good. So hit us up. But if you really, really want to go the extra mile and support your favorite show on the paranormal, on UFOs, cryptids, the Fortean, all of it, check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. At the $1 tier, you're just giving us a tip. You're saying, hey, thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1. At the $2 tier, you get a bonus show called It Gets Weird TV, where right now, Niall and I are in the back half of Neon Genesis Evangelion. We talk about it. We talk about all the sort of esoteric stuff in it, and that relates to other topics like on our show sometimes. And so we just talk weird TV on that show. And listeners who donate at the $2 tier and up get to vote on what show we watch next. So when we finish with Ava, you can vote on what we watch next. We've also watched The X-Files. We watched Project Blue Book. We've watched Supernatural for a season. We've done all kinds of stuff. So that's a $2 tier. But at the $5 tier, you get the most bang for your buck, where right now we have a show called World of Weird, where we just kind of talk about cutting room floor topics, stuff going on in our lives. We just chat about whatever. We crack jokes and shit. It's a really good time. And you'll be getting that in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. So you're getting a huge backlog of content no matter which tier you donate at, $2 or $5 tier. If you donate to either of those tiers, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own special Patreon feed. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with listeners like you, just about all kinds of stuff under the world of weird. If you can't donate, though, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.